Right now, while you are sitting here watching this, an object that was not born anywhere near our sun is racing through our solar system at a speed no comet from our own neighborhood could ever reach, moving so fast that nothing here could ever pull it into orbit. Not now, not ever. It is only the third object of its kind humanity has ever confirmed, and it just did something that has left some of the world's leading astronomers openly disagreeing about what they're even looking at. It's moving at roughly 130,000 miles per hour relative to our sun. And in the months since it was found, it has behaved in ways that don't fully match anything we've seen from a comet before. Scientists aren't calling this unusual. They're calling it genuinely unexpected. And in at least one case, they built an entire international search effort just to rule out the strangest possible explanation. Here's the part the headlines are not telling you. Stay with me, because by the time this is over, you will never think about a shooting star the same way again. Its name is 3I/A/Talas, and its story begins on July 1st, 2025, when a robotic sky survey telescope in the mountains of Chile, part of a network built specifically to hunt for asteroids that might threaten Earth, picked up a faint, slightly fuzzy point of light moving in a way that immediately caught researchers' attention. Within days, astronomers around the world had confirmed what the earliest data suggested. This object was not orbiting the sun at all. It was simply passing through, on a one-way trip from somewhere else entirely, making it only the third interstellar visitor ever confirmed in the history of astronomy, after Oumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019. At the moment of discovery, 3I/A/Talas was still more than 400 million miles from the sun, faint, slightly diffuse, and moving fast enough that the discovery team knew almost immediately they weren't looking at a typical solar system object. Within hours, researchers combing through older archival images from other telescopes around the world found what are called pre-discovery observations, faint traces of the same object sitting unnoticed in data collected weeks earlier, once astronomers finally knew exactly where and when to look for it. Here's where the first twist in the story arrives. Every comet and asteroid native to our solar system, without exception, is gravitationally bound to the sun, looping around it on an orbit that repeats, sometimes over years, sometimes over thousands of years. 3I/A/Talas is not doing that. Its orbit is so extreme, so aggressively curved, that astronomers describe it using a number called eccentricity, where anything above 1 means an object is not bound to the sun at all. 3I/A/Talas came in at an eccentricity above 6, making it, by a significant margin, the most extreme, most sharply hyperbolic trajectory of any of the 3 interstellar objects ever recorded. More extreme than Oumuamua, more extreme than Borisov, cutting through our solar system on a path steep enough that nothing in it will ever see this visitor again. To put that number in perspective, most familiar comets, the ones that swing back past Earth every few decades or few centuries, have an eccentricity comfortably below 1, meaning the sun's gravity has them locked into a repeating loop. Oumuamua came in at roughly 1.2, already enough to confirm it as interstellar. Borisov came in noticeably higher, around 3.4. 3I/A/Talas blew past both of them, at just over 6, meaning it is moving through our solar system so fast, on such a straight, steep path, that the sun's gravity barely bends its trajectory at all. It is less like a visitor pausing to look around, and more like something glancing briefly through a doorway without ever slowing down. But here's the part that stops being abstract and starts being personal. Based on its speed and trajectory, astronomers calculated something called its kinematic age, essentially an estimate, using its motion relative to the stars around it, of roughly how long this object has been drifting through the galaxy before it ever stumbled into our solar system. The numbers that came back stunned several research teams, somewhere between 3 and 11 billion years old, potentially making 3I/A/Talas older than our entire solar system itself. A genuine wanderer that may have been born around a star that existed, and possibly died, before our own sun ever ignited. Think about what that actually means. Right now, moving through the same solar system as Earth, is a piece of material that may have formed around a completely different star, in a completely different part of our galaxy, before the sun, the Earth, or anything else in our neighborhood had even come into existence yet. Now the story gets stranger. As 3I/A/Talas approached the sun through late 2025, telescopes around the world watched it begin behaving like a comet, developing a glowing coma and tail as ices on its surface began vaporizing in sunlight, the same basic process we see in solar system comets every year. But the details didn't match. At greater distances from the sun, its activity was dominated overwhelmingly by carbon dioxide gas, not the water ice that typically dominates solar system comets at similar distances, only shifting toward water vapor as it got much closer to the sun. Multiple research teams also reported unusual, non-typical dust-scattering behavior in how sunlight bounced off its coma, patterns that didn't cleanly match previous interstellar visitors or familiar solar system comets. Solar system comets, formed from the same original cloud of material that built our sun and planets, tend to follow fairly predictable rules about which ices vaporize at which distances, rules built from decades of studying thousands of comets that all share a common origin. 3I/8LAS followed a noticeably different script, its carbon dioxide-dominated outgassing at large distances suggesting a surface composition and possibly a formation environment that simply doesn't match anything native to our own solar system. A subtle but important clue that whatever star system built this object, its planetary building blocks may have assembled under meaningfully different conditions than the ones that built Earth. Here's the twist that almost nobody outside specialist astronomy circles is talking about. Because 3I/8LAS is only the third confirmed interstellar object ever discovered, and because a small number of scientists have seriously proposed, in published research, that any future interstellar object could theoretically be artificial rather than natural, this particular visitor triggered something almost unheard of. A coordinated, multi-observatory search for radio transmissions coming from the object itself, run by the Breakthrough Listen Initiative, one of the largest scientific efforts on Earth dedicated to searching for signs of extraterrestrial technology. Stop and sit with that for a second. For the first time in human history, as an interstellar object passed through our solar system, multiple major radio telescopes, including some of the most sensitive instruments ever built, were specifically pointed at it, listening, just in case. On December 19th, 2025, 3I/8LAS reached its closest approach to Earth, at a distance of roughly 167 million miles, still far closer than any of its two interstellar predecessors ever came. Less than 24 hours before that closest approach, researchers used the massive 100-meter Green Bank telescope in West Virginia, one of the largest steerable radio dishes on the planet, sensitive enough at that range to detect a transmitter using barely a tenth of a watt of power to listen across a wide range of radio frequencies for anything artificial coming from the object. That single night of observation represented the most sensitive search for artificial signals ever conducted on an interstellar object, using 4 separate receivers to scan frequencies ranging from 1 to 12 gigahertz, a range wide enough to catch the kind of deliberate, narrow-band transmission any technological civilization might theoretically use to signal its presence. Nothing like this level of coordinated, high-sensitivity listening had ever been possible during the much briefer, much fainter passages of Oumuamua or Borisov years earlier, largely because 3I/8LAS was discovered so much earlier in its approach, giving astronomers months of advance warning instead of mere weeks. Come back to the science, because there is one more thing worth knowing. The result of that historic search was, in its own way, exactly what most astronomers expected and quietly hoped for. No artificial radio signal was detected, anywhere, at any frequency they checked. In every published statement since, the researchers involved have been careful and precise. There remains no evidence that 3I/8LAS is anything other than a natural object, an ancient, well-traveled comet from another star system, behaving, in almost every respect, like a comet should. And now comes the moment on the calendar, already locked in, whether we like it or not. Having already passed its closest approach to both the Sun and Earth, 3I/8LAS is now speeding back outward, permanently leaving our solar system on the same hyperbolic path that brought it in, never to return, its own excess velocity relative to the Sun measured at nearly 36 miles per second, more than enough to escape the Sun's gravity forever, regardless of anything that happens next. Every observatory currently tracking it is racing against a closing window, because within the next couple of years, 3I/8LAS will simply become too faint and too distant for even the most powerful telescopes on Earth to keep studying in any meaningful detail. There is something almost unbearably poetic in that. An object that may have begun its journey billions of years ago, around a star humanity will likely never identify, spend a matter of months passing directly through our own cosmic backyard, briefly visible, briefly listened to, briefly studied by an entire generation of scientists using instruments that didn't exist the last time an interstellar visitor passed through, and then it simply continues on into the dark between the stars, permanently beyond reach, carrying whatever remains of its ancient surface into a future no human alive today will ever witness. There are still 2 genuine open questions science has never fully resolved about 3I/8LAS, and neither has an easy answer. The first, why do its dust and gas signatures differ so noticeably from the comets we're used to studying in our own solar system? And does that difference tell us something meaningful about how planets and comets form around other, very different kinds of stars? The second question is broader and stranger. With only 3 confirmed interstellar objects ever found, and increasingly sensitive sky surveys expected to detect many more in the coming years, is 3I/A Talas an unusually old, unusually strange outlier, or is it actually closer to typical for what's quietly passing through our solar system all the time, largely undetected, simply because we only just recently built telescopes capable of noticing them at all? Astronomers already have a strong hint pointing toward that second possibility. The same wide-field sky surveys now coming online, including newer, more sensitive observatories specifically designed to scan the entire visible sky repeatedly, are expected to detect interstellar objects far more frequently than the roughly one confirmed every several years we've experienced so far. Some researchers now estimate that once these newer surveys are fully operational, humanity may end up detecting several new interstellar visitors every single year, meaning 3I/A Talas may not be remembered as a rare anomaly at all, but simply as the first of what turns out to be a genuinely routine, ongoing traffic of ancient material quietly passing through our solar system, largely unnoticed, for as long as our sun has existed. That window, the tiny, irreplaceable stretch of time in which 3I/A Talas is still close enough, still bright enough, for humanity's best instruments to study it in detail, is closing, month by month, as it accelerates back out into permanent interstellar darkness. So the next time you look up at an ordinary night sky, remember this. Somewhere out there right now, an object potentially older than our entire solar system, carrying material from a star system we will likely never identify, is quietly speeding away from us forever, having just been listened to, searched, and studied by the most sensitive instruments humanity has ever built, and found, as far as anyone can currently prove, to be exactly what it appears to be. An ancient, natural traveler, simply passing through. It was never going to stay. It just wanted us to notice it on the way past. If this story pulled you into the dark with it, subscribe right now, drop a comment telling me whether you think the next interstellar visitor will be this well-behaved, and share this with someone who still looks up and wonders what else is passing through unnoticed. Because 3I/A Talas is already leaving, and we may not see anything like it again for years.